Welcome back to the Whole Nine Yards here. Drew Pien and Brandon Kokorian on a Tuesday evening. Brandon, it's been a while since we recorded. We didn't really talk about Wildcard Weekend, or we didn't give our preview on it at least. How's it going?
Yeah. Yeah. I was in Vermont last week, so that's that's on me. But I mean, I think we're both probably in the same state. We'll get into it, but I mean, our teams, just I mean, yours flopped, mine flopped as well. The score didn't. I guess the score technically didn't reflect that, but yeah, definitely not in the best mood. I would say so.
I would say my team didn't show up, at least on defense, and your team, Mike McCarthy, I guess if you want to call it that. I don't know. I mean, you probably have much more in-depth thoughts on it. I think I'm just more in the opinion of I told you a year and a half ago or whatever it was, 2 years ago, to get rid of Mike McCarthy, and he's still here. So we'll start with Wildcard Weekend. We'll just go in order of the games. So we'll start with Raiders
Yep.
Bengals and finish with Cardinals Rams. I know it's a few days ago since these games, but Raiders Bengals. Bengals win 26-19. This is probably the I don't want to say the least eventful wildcard game, but this is the one that to me is the least relevant, I guess. I mean, two teams that I don't know that they're that great, really, but the Bengals end up winning. Burrow, I mean, I my Burrow over Herbert take for their careers. This is it's at if it's a stock, the stock is at an all time high right now to me. With Herbert not getting into the playoffs when he had a chance at least. He was in a playing game to get in the wild card game, doesn't win that, and then Burrow beats the team that beat Herbert. So I think that stock's at an all time high, but it's been a while since this game. I don't really have any key takeaways. I don't think the Raiders were really ready yet. I think the AFC probably lacked. It was competitive, the 7 seed, and I guess other than the Patriots, really, all those wildcard seeds were competitive. But I'm not sure that other than the Colts, all those other teams are really that good. And I think that game kind of proves it. I don't think the Raiders looked like a outstanding team, and the Bengals are kind of like the Nuggets to me. Like they're kind of just a year ahead. They're kind of ahead of like their rebuild or whatever, if you want to call it, or their progression to being a real team. But I think next year is when we're going to start to see, hopefully, the Bengals, start getting into real like championship contending strides. Right now, I think they've reached their ceiling. I think they're done. I mean, we'll talk about the matchup, but in barring Titans not being ready to go, I think they're at their ceiling. Do you have any like takeaways from this game?
Um, well, quickly on the Burrow Herbert thing, I mean, yeah, I guess you could say Burrow's it is at an all time high because he's in the playoffs and he won a playoff game. But I mean, Herbert, like, I mean, I thought he played pretty well in that final game. Now, like, I mean, he didn't have much help. His defense, as we knew, just was going to let him down the entire season. It did in that game. He converted like 5 4th downs, even got them a chance to somehow win that game. And if Staley doesn't make a dumb decision with the timeout, they're probably in the playoffs. So, yeah, I mean, I can admit that it's probably higher right now, but at the same time, I think Herbert's right there. But on this game, it was I mean, it was a close game. Obviously, there's out of the 6 games, there's only 2 close games, and this was one of them. And again, there's the big decision and the big call about the whistle and everything, which I, I don't, I do. I think it would have mattered. I don't know, but just the explanation that they gave, I thought was ridiculous. Like that, the explanation they gave, the NFL gave, like the day after or whatever it was that the whistle blew after the catch, and like as you just like if you just saw it live or any replay, it's clearly before the catch. So I mean, do I think it totally mattered? Probably not, but I think the explanation is just garbage, to be honest. So I think there's a little bit of can have a gripe with that, but the Bengals were the better team anyways. But you had to give the Raiders credit, like I've been saying the last however many weeks. They always play one possession games. Literally every single game they played this season, except for like 2 or 3, and again those Chiefs games are one of those, but or both of those. But it was a one possession game, so you knew it was going to be a close game. You give Derek Carr a lot of credit throughout the season. We'll see what happens with his future, their future as well, the Raiders. But yeah, I agree. The Bengals are for sure a year too early. Now they definitely have a favorable schedule going against the Raiders and the Titans. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better matchup between that or the Chiefs and Bills, who we'll get into also. But yeah, I don't have much takeaway from this, but we'll see. I definitely give the Bengals a shot, especially if Henry's not playing next week, but or this week. But it would definitely be a year too early. But I mean, is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? Because if they win that game this week, that how much expectation is that for next year? Where you would assume the Ravens are better. Maybe the Browns are a little bit more competitive. Maybe not like top of the division team, but they're probably more competitive. Steelers, who knows? But that it could be a good thing, but it could also be a bad thing because of the expectations going into next year.
Yeah, I think the expectations rise. There's at least some people that are still skeptical on Zach Taylor as a head coach. I don't know. I mean, I think there's. I don't think. I who's going to win Coach of the Year this year?
Probably, I would say Rabel, in my opinion.
Okay. I. I mean, if Zach Taylor were to win Coach of the Year this year, I mean, I'm not saying he would, but I would be scared that he takes a pass similar to Nagy, which is like your first year is kind of your peak, and then after that it really starts to get worse and worse. I don't know. I think you definitely would play a tougher schedule now that you're playing a first place schedule and not a fourth place schedule. I think that always hurts, but I mean Burrow's only getting better. I mean this is almost his rookie year. I mean I know he played last year, but I don't think he played a majority of the games. He only played what, maybe
Played four.
five? Yeah, four. Um, so this is like, I mean, what he's doing to me is pretty incredible, and he has got a bunch of weapons that should theoretically only get better. I mean, Chase should only get better. Higgins and Boyd, I don't know that they're gonna for sure get better, but they shouldn't get any worse. And this team should continue to progress. The division gets competitive. The Ravens, I still think next year are probably the favorites to win the division once they're healthy, but yeah. And honestly though, even though the Bengals may be, people might have not have thought they're going to get past the divisional round. I mean, to get the Titans in the second round, I think is huge. I would much rather play the Titans right now than either the Chiefs or probably the Bills. So,
Well, definitely, obviously. I mean, even if Henry's playing you, that you'd still rather play the Titans than play the Bills or the Chiefs. So it's for sure favorable, and that's like when it worked out that they were going to be the 3 seed. It was perfect seeding because you would, unless there was an upset, which it was potential. Obviously, the Patriots could have beaten the Bills, but I feel like most people probably the Bills winning, and obviously they did. So that means you would have played the Titans if you won your game, which again most people thought they would. So it was great favorable schedule right there. And yeah, we'll see for next year. I mean, again, Burrow's 25. I mean, he's definitely an older, quarterback for only, again, like you said, this is basically his rookie year. So he is an older quarterback. So I think that does help also because he has, I think, more experience as well. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of expectations. Even if they lose this week, there's going to be a lot of expectations next year. But I do agree. I think the Ravens are the best team in this division. I mean, they were missing so many guys this year. I mean, like all the running backs, all their secondary. I mean, you get those guys back, you draft. I mean, they have a decent draft position too. So like they're going to draft well. They almost always do. So like I expect the Ravens to probably win this division next year. But if Burrow takes that leap to where he is a top 5 quarterback or number 6, then I think you can obviously debate which team is better, but we'll have to see. I think you're definitely higher on him. I'm for sure high, but I think I still have just not doubt, but just a little. I'm just holding back a little bit, and then if he proves me wrong next year, he proves me wrong. But I guess we'll see next year.
yeah, no, I want to ask. Okay, I want to ask you this, and I don't really know my answer on it, and I know your answer on it. I know 99% of the population's answer on it. But would you rather have Burrow or Allen for the rest of their careers?
I would rather have Allen. I mean, as we just saw, like he can just take over a game. I mean, it's like ridiculous. I mean, we'll talk about it next, but like what he can do. And again, maybe Burrow. Again, Burrow has only been in the league like he's like a year. So Allen's been in the league. This is his 4th year. So in 2 years, maybe it changes. But I mean, Allen. I've always been on Allen, and I mean, he's proving me just right again and again and again. So I'd say Allen.
Yeah, I was gonna say this before we started the show, but I did kind of forget. But I'll say it now. I do want to, at least for my, I do want to, and I think you should as well. We should try to throw out at least potentially one, not bold take a show, but just one kind of out there take because I am I'm pretty sure, or at least I'm like 95, 98, 99% sure that I'm going to have to do a presentation after the Super Bowl. And I need some material to kind of, like, I've got some stuff already, but, you know, if we don't go out there for the divisional round, conference round, Super Bowl, then I'm not sure I'm going to have content to make this presentation. I've got bad takes for me. I've got some good takes for you, but I don't have anything like crazy other than maybe a couple things that I've said that I probably shouldn't have said, that are now probably incorrect. But I'm going with Burrow. This is kind of my out there take. I'm going with Burrow over Allen for the rest of their careers. And I'm not going to doubt Josh Allen's ability to take over a game. He played pretty much a perfect game against the Patriots. And I'll probably have more thoughts on that in the Clips channel. Again, the link in the description. I'm pretty sure we'll both come out with episodes this week if you haven't already. So yeah, but I don't know this for sure about Burrow, but I think he has a chance and probably will be more consistent in terms of in terms of just like mistakes and interceptions. And he's been prone to mistakes so far, but that's what happens when you're a rookie / in your second year. We'll see what happens to Burrow in his third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh year, but I have a feeling, and from watching them, I am confident that Burrow will down the line make less mistakes. I don't trust Josh Allen to be a consistent elite quarterback. Clearly against the Patriots he was consistent, but when he doesn't have it going for him and he's not in this rhythm and not playing a perfect game, it can tend to get ugly. I mean, we've seen him throw, multiple pick games and games where he looks clueless and games where this was much earlier in his career, but the play where he just like threw the ball over his back in the wild card, and if you remember that game, or like behind his back or whatever it was. I'm not saying he would do anything that stupid anymore, but when things aren't going well for him, it can become scary, and that's kind of my scare with Josh Allen. And in a league where it's one and done in the playoffs, I need to have trust in my quarterback that he can go at least 3 games and probably 4 of pretty much mistake-free football. Any more than 1 or 2 mistakes in a game as a quarterback, and you're probably not going to win. That's just the reality of it, especially when you get into the later games, conference championship and Super Bowl. If you're playing, the 1 seeds and 2 seeds from each conference, it's unlikely that you can afford for Josh Allen to have a Josh Allen type game. And when I say Josh Allen, I mean in a negative way. But he also does have the Josh Allen games in a positive way. So, can he string games like that together, for the divisional conference and Super Bowl? We'll see. I don't think so. I'm going to predict that they fall to the Chiefs this week. But, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, like Allen, they built that offensive line. They have I know they at least have 1 or 2 Pro Bowlers on that line, but like even the other guys who aren't Pro Bowlers, they've been there for a couple of years. They have, they're good guys, not like they're bad offensive linemen. So like he has a good offensive line that's obviously helped Burrow. That's the one thing. And like I remembered from the draft from this year, I thought they should have taken Penei Sewell, which still isn't a bad pick. I mean, he definitely was probably the best tackle, like rookie wise.
Well, I'm Rashawn Slater, right?
Oh, well, Slater, yeah, Slater, I forgot. But honestly, there's an argument, probably, I guess, second, but you could probably make an argument. But I would say Slater. I kind of forgot about him. But I argued for that over Chase. Now, obviously, that was wrong because Chase is amazing, and you can take an offensive lineman this year or something. But if he still got sacked 50 times this year, so there still is that question as well. So if they were to shore up that offensive line, then yeah, for sure, he wouldn't get hit as much. He's obviously a pocket guy. He can move, but he's obviously a pocket guy. Where Allen's, he's looking to move at all times, honestly, and he's still great in the pocket. So I think Allen's lows. I think his highs are so high that like even when he has his lows, like you can just brush him to the side because it may happen once or twice. Now it could happen in a playoff game, we'll see. But his highs are just so high where he can just take over a game. I think we should move to this Bills Patriots game. Now I'll let you talk first, but when you said almost a perfect day, I mean 21 to 25, 308 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean I think that's a perfect day. Like 100% perfect in my mind.
I mean, technically, his rating was 157.6. Perfect rating is 158.3. I'm not saying it wasn't a perfect day. It technically was not perfect. But, yeah, he had a perfect day. The Bills end up just destroying the Patriots 47-17. I mean, I don't know where you want me to start, but, as a Patriots fan, I guess I should probably start on the Patriots. Super in-depth stuff, Clips channel, check it out. It'll be up there. maybe not when this episode is up, but in the next 2 days for sure. You got to start with the defense. 7 possessions, 7 touchdowns. They scored a touchdown on every possession in the game besides the last one, but that doesn't count because it was a kneel down. The defense just didn't show up. I question the scheme. I think Belichick's. I think we should take a serious look at firing everybody on that defensive staff except for obviously Belichick. Steve Belichick, Belichick's son. I don't think he should be here. I don't know what's going on. I mean, we've been a zone defense throughout a lot of the year, and then we start playing man, and the man just clearly doesn't work. I'm not sure the zone really works either. The personnel I think is awful, and the bad drafts, except for probably this year, which I guess you would consider a decent draft with Jones and Barmore. But before this draft, we hadn't really, and we still haven't drafted a Pro Bowler since 2011 when we drafted Jamie Collins, 2011, 2012, 2013, one of those years where we drafted Jamie Collins. And it's really starting to show on the defensive side. I mean, Judon, I don't know what happened to Judon, but I mean, he had an amazing start to the year. And then kind of the last, 8 games, just wasn't great at all. He was maybe good at best, but we just have no really special guys on the defensive side other than the first half of the year, Judon, and I'm not sure JC is special, but it really doesn't matter when you don't have a second corner. So, and Jalen Mills was out, and Jalen Mills wasn't even supposed to be the second corner. He's not a second corner. Flat out, the defensive personnel is not good. We need a revamp of the linebacking core. Slow linebackers in the league just don't work anymore. Take a look at the Tampa defensive linebackers last year. Devin White, Levante David. We don't have anybody like that. And I'm not saying obviously those are great linebackers, but we don't have anybody that's like similar to them in terms of play style. Like we don't have a short, or not necessarily short, but we don't have like a small, quick linebacker. And most defenses rely on those types of linebackers nowadays. There's not really a need for this big brute at linebacker to fill gaps and stop the run. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have those. We need some quicker guys who can, be a better quarterback spy and kind of keep up with that, or really, hang on to the running back and cover the running back well and kind of flex and do whatever he's needed to do, and not just a guy that's like Jawan Bentley's just a big guy who really just fills gaps and can't do anything in the pass coverage. And I think that shows. We just got a lot of old guys as well, like Devin McCourty. He's good, I guess, but he's getting up there in age. He's been a pro now for like 11 years. So I think that I was never really a big fan of the defense, I guess. I don't know if I ever really said that on the podcast necessarily. I think I did, but I don't think this defense was the best defense in the league at all at any point this year. Really, I don't think it has elite personnel. I think it's a top 10 defense, maybe, but that's really just because of Belichick. And yeah, I think the defense needs a revamp. Offensively, I think we need more personnel. Like, we just don't have a number one receiver. But offensively, there's not much to say this game. I mean, Mac Jones, I thought, came to play. He was all right. He was okay. I mean, I don't think he did anything egregiously horrible. He threw 2 picks. I'm trying to think. I don't think the first pick.
Yeah, the first one wasn't. That was just a great play.
So, I mean, yeah, okay. So there's 2 things about the first pick. The first pick was a great play by Hyde. There's no doubt about it. That's why you go get an all-pro safety, is to have a guy like Hyde who just makes a game-changing play like that. If that play's not made, maybe this game is not a 30-point blowout. Maybe it's a 20-point comfortable win with a touchdown late to seal the deal or something like that. But that's a play that's a killer, especially for a rookie quarterback and a young offense that really doesn't have much going for it. We were driving pretty decently up to that point, and then just a good play. But I will be honest, that is not a perfect throw by Jones. It's still slightly underthrown. Now, is it his fault? No, it's not his fault for the pick. But if that throw was perfect, that is still a touchdown. If you go back and watch the play, it is slightly underthrown. Now, if I was going to grade that throw on a letter scale, I would give that throw like a B to a B+. It's a good throw, but is it an A- or an A or an A+? I don't think so. So had that throw been an A, then I think that's a touchdown. Because of it not being an A throw, it was an interception. Not his fault, but maybe Mahomes or Wilson or Brady or Rodgers has that A throw and that's a touchdown instead of essentially like a 14-point swing, essentially. The second pick, I think, was more his fault. There's not as much to say on it. But as far as the offense is concerned, we just need more pieces. Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar is just not going to get it done receiving wise. That's probably a bunch of threes to me. Maybe Bourne's a two. Maybe Bourne's an okay two to have on your team, but meh. Hunter Henry is like, I don't know, he's an okay red zone target, but when that's all you have, it's just not good enough. And Jonnu Smith was so far just a complete failure of a signing. If we could cut him and save all the money, we would do it in a heartbeat. I have no doubt about it. But that's, you can't really do that. So yeah, I mean, I think that's everything though.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll talk the Bills side because you obviously talked the Patriots side. But yeah. I mean, like I said, they played. They literally, like you said, they played a perfect game on offense. 7 possessions, 7 touchdowns. Again, not counting the last one. But we'll see. I mean, they play the Chiefs this week. They obviously played them last year. Allen, I mean, he had a good game last year, but not a great game. But I think he's on a roll. Like from that second Patriots game, obviously they played the Jets to end the season, but like he was still pretty good in that game. But like from that Patriots game until this game, he's just been on a roll. And like you said, he's not streaky, but like if he's on a hot streak, then he's gonna be. He's gonna have a great performance. But you're probably looking for at least not a great performance in some game. Maybe that's this game, maybe it's not, but. I think he's on a roll. I think their offense, they finally got the running game going. Not just Allen, but Singletary was great in this game. If they're going to need that, if they want to win, because if it's only Allen running the ball, like you can for sure, like he had 60 yards in this one. And again, if this was a closer game, he's probably running even more. But if it's only Allen, you can only get so far, and the amount of hits he's going to take as well. So if Singletary can run like this, now maybe not 16 for 81, but if he can just give you like 60 plus yards every game and at least be somewhat efficient and get you 2 touchdowns in this one, I think he's had like 3 straight games of 2 touchdowns. Like if he could just keep doing that, somewhat similar to that, then I think they for sure have a chance because the passing game is going to be elite. I think their defense is a question. Now in this game it wasn't really tested, but it's been number one throughout the season. Now is it really the true number one defense? I kind of want to argue that. I don't think it really is. Their secondary is really good, but again, they don't have Tre'Davious White. He obviously was injured in the middle of the season. Their front, like they have guys on their front line, but like it doesn't like Ed Oliver. Like I don't feel like he's as impactful as he was supposed to be coming out of college. Jerry Hughes is for sure a good player, but I don't think he's as good as he was a couple of years ago. There's a couple of guys along that line as well who like are good, but like I don't think they're super impactful. So against the Chiefs, we'll really see because that's obviously the biggest test there is in football against them, where they just embarrassed the Steelers, and we'll get into that, but. I have confidence in this Bills team. Now for the next episode we'll make our picks for that game, but this was definitely a prove it game in my mind. Now we'll see next year what happens. The Patriots come back, like you said, get better, more defensive pieces, more offensive pieces, and Jones as year two, but. This kind of feels like it's, the Bills division. Right now, it's hard to argue that, obviously. And again, they have the best quarterback in the division, so it's also hard to argue them not being the best team. But this definitely feels like it's the Bills division, for the next couple of years. Unless Jones gets, increasingly better, like very fast, or something crazy happens in the division. But like I said, it feels like the Bills division for the next couple of years at least.
Yeah, I guess a couple things. On the Singletary thing, I would chalk it up to more so the Patriots defense borderline giving up. Um,
Well, I
we
mean,
just haven't.
he was doing a lot of that damage early though.
I know, and I'm legitimately willing to say that. I shouldn't say giving up, but I would say just not showing up. Like I think you could pretty much say that every linebacker on the Patriots and every defensive lineman on the Patriots had a bad game. Um, so yeah, we just haven't seen, and we also just haven't seen any sort of track record that's going to indicate to me that Devin Singletary in that offensive line is going to be able to reproduce what they did in that wild card game in the future. I'm not saying you said that, but to me, if I'm a Bills fan, I'm not holding out hope that somehow randomly Singletary is going to rush for 80 yards in the upcoming games in the regular season, and it's going to be an effective running game. Because I would still have no faith in that as a Bills fan. But, yeah.
Yeah. So is that I mean, you'll get more into it on when you do your own episode on the Patriots, but is that it overall wise from the game that you have?
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess another thing would I would say is it's just kind of a slightly hot take, but if I mean, okay, well, let me ask you a question first. Would you consider this Patriots season a disappointment?
No. And I said it before when I think they were probably towards the end of their win streak or something. I said like they weren't expected to make the playoffs this year. Like they just weren't. I know you may disagree with that or whatever. Like you know they still could make the playoffs going into this year, but they weren't expected to go to the playoffs this year. So I would say it's definitely not a disappointment. If you know now that they lost.
I mean, I would just disagree. I mean, I'm a Patriots fan, so I have a different angle on it than I guess like the non-Patriots fans. But to go on a 7 game win streak, and at one point they were what 9-4. They were 9-4 at one point. To be 9-4, to be the number one seed, almost at the end of the season with like 5 games to go, and then to finish as the 6th seed and lose by 30 in the wild card, to me that's a humongous disappointment. And I get that at the beginning of the year they weren't expected to make the playoffs necessarily. Couple things, to me that's kind of irrelevant. Like I guess it's kind of relevant, but when you look at how the playoff seeding actually played out, I mean, were they expected to be better, or I guess were they expected to be worse than the Steelers and the Raiders? I don't think so. I think they were expected to be kind of in the same pack as the Raiders and Steelers, and they both made the playoffs. So I don't think that's a good excuse. And the same with the Bengals. I mean, if the Bengals were to lose to the Raiders by 30, would we say the Bengals season just was a disappointment? To me, I would agree that I would say that's a disappointment because, yeah, you won the division and you weren't expected to do that. You were kind of expected to be last in the division. The reality of it is that you had a pretty good season. Burrow had an amazing year. Chase had an amazing year. You won the division, and you also have to consider you won the division due to teams being injured. But then you lose in the first round with probably the easiest opponent, and you lose by 30. I mean, I would consider that a disappointment. I know it's not exactly the same as the Patriots, but I guess I'm just trying to say that I don't think it's that I'm being biased by saying it was a disappointment. To me, there's no way I can excuse being 9-4 with what a lot of people thought was the best defense in the league. A rookie quarterback who's having an amazing year, and to finish 10-7 and to lose by 30 in the wild card round to your division rival, I just don't think it's excusable.
But honestly, and we'll try and keep this somewhat short, but I never thought they were better than the Bills. The one time they beat them was the ridiculous game where it's 50-mile-per-hour winds and they're running the ball and they win 14-10. Yeah, and then when they play them at home in New England, they lose. And again, they lost pretty convincingly. It was still a close game, but the Bills had that one in hand. Allen took over, and then we see what happened in this game. So I never thought they were better than the Bills. And I think that matters when you look at who they lost to in the playoffs. They lost to a better team in the Bills, where if you were the Bengals, like the example that you had, like if they were to lose to the Raiders, then it probably would be a disappointment because you are the better team, you're the home team, and you would have lost to the Raiders. Now that's just them just losing in general, not by 30. But like if you're the Patriots, even if they lost, it was a close game to the Bills, I would still say it's not a disappointment. Maybe it's not a success, even though I could argue that. But I wouldn't say it's a disappointment at that juncture. But even still, you're a Pats fan. I'm not, so obviously we're going to look at it differently. But from my point of view, from being on the outside, I would say it's at least it's in the rather in the middle or leaning towards a successful season because it's building towards next year. Like you said, personnel decisions, maybe some coaching decisions as well. Then Jones gets better in year 2. Then maybe you're not 10-7, maybe you're 11-6, maybe even 12-5, and you're still fighting for the division. So I think it's a building step for again a year where you're expected to maybe not rebuild but retool. Trying to step back a little bit and then move forward the next year, maybe even 2 years later.
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, I don't even. I mean, the retool thing, kind of, but we also spent the most money in free agency that anybody's like ever spent, pretty much.
Well, that's a
So,
retooling, though, is it not?
I mean, it's a retooling, but we got the tools. Like, I mean, they all had an off season. It's not like it was a COVID year. Like, well, I guess it was a COVID year, but it's not like it was like the before this year's COVID year where it's like you don't even have training camp essentially. They had enough time to rebuild, and Belichick's treated the preseason, he's really appreciated the preseason, and I think it hurt him more than other coaches, and this isn't an excuse, but it hurt him more than other coaches to not have a full preseason because we treated the first almost couple months of the year like as a preseason, which we already did when it was a full preseason. We had Brady, but now we don't have Brady, and there's a less of a preseason. So it's like we're kind of taking more of a hit there than I guess maybe we anticipated, or maybe we thought we could have just not lost 3 out of our last 4. And with the better team thing, I agree. On paper, the Bills are just a more talented team. But at the same time, to lose the 1 seed in the division to the Bills, we lost to the Colts, who didn't make the playoffs. We lost to the Bills, which, that's fine. And then we lost to the Dolphins, who didn't make the playoffs. And all those losses were not necessarily embarrassing, but none of those games were really that close. And then I guess my last thing is, like you said, yeah, we did lose to the better team in the Bills. And had it been by, 5 points, a touchdown, I would agree with you. I would say, you know what, we just lost to the better team. They have more talent. This was not, I just don't think it was a talent thing. We lost by 30 points. This has never been done before, to not, have punt or anything in a game other than a touchdown. They literally only scored touchdowns the whole game. That is, literally, our defense would have been better off by just not showing up. That's not a talent thing to me. Even the Jaguars probably would have played a better game defensively than the Patriots did on Saturday night. So that's why I just can't consider it at all anything but a disappointment. There's just too many things. If one of those things had been different, had we not been 9-4 at one point with the 1 seed, had we not had some pretty disappointing losses to end the season, had we not lost by 30 against our division rival, against the in the wild card, then I would probably be on your side. But for all of those things to be a factor, and I have to consider it a disappointment. So, but we probably spent a long time on this, so we can move on. Probably just move on to the next game, or do you have anything else to say?
No, we can move to the next game where it was the Bucks versus the Eagles. Bucks win 31-15, but I don't really have much to say about this game. It's really a nothing game, to be honest. Everyone expected this. Now it was a blowout. This game, the score didn't really affect how much of a blowout it was, but the one thing I'll say one thing about the Eagles, one thing about the Bucks. Eagles, they, again, a year where they're expected to win 4 or 5 games, maybe 6 at most. They win 9, make the playoffs. Impressive, definitely. Definitely have to look at the schedule also. But Hurts, he's just not the answer at quarterback. They'll probably ride with him next year. But you'll definitely see when, one, you're playing a harder schedule, for one, but two, let's see what this team looks like next year as well. I just don't think he's the answer there long term. I don't think they think that either. But I think some people have been saying that he can be at least a quarterback for the Eagles, maybe not a franchise quarterback, but at least be there for multiple years. I don't think that at all. So that's one thing on the Eagles. And for the Bucks, this game doesn't really tell me anything because, again, they were expected to win this game pretty easily, and they did. They play the Rams this week. I think that's a test. They obviously lost them earlier in the year when they had Godwin, and they had other people that were, that may or may not play in this game, and the Rams have obviously added people as well. Cam Akers looked great in that game. We'll talk about it, but he's back, and now with him and Michelle, they actually have a pretty good running game. Then obviously you have Stafford with Kupp and everyone else. So I think the Rams are dangerous, and I think this is going to be a test for the Bucks, and again, we'll talk about it in the next episode. But I think that's going to be a close game, and we'll pick the games. But I may be tipping my hand, but I may lean Rams in that one.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about this game either. I'm not going to say Jalen Hurts isn't the answer. Okay, actually, I guess I will say it. Jalen Hurts is not the long-term franchise-changing quarterback that I don't know if anybody thought it, but he's just not that guy. Could he be, a bridge quarterback or a guy who can be okay to decent on most nights and potentially get you into the playoffs and maybe even win a game or two and some really good year where it all works out for you? Yeah. Is he a quarterback that's going to be the next guy for the next 15 years? And even if he slows down athletically, he's still going to be there for you? No. And I'm not sure many people thought that would be the case, but he's just not that guy. But I do think that he can be a bridge to the next guy for sure. He is young, but he's still, I guess I should say, he's not, to me, he doesn't just have this, to me, he feels a little bit older than maybe he actually is. He still makes a bunch of mistakes, but I think he can be the bridge to the next guy, and he could probably even be the quarterback for the next 5 years, and they'd be okay. But yeah, if they want to have that true, Josh Allen or Mahomes or Rodgers type guy or whatever, he's just not that. The Eagles, but whatever about the Eagles. The Bucks, I would also say I don't have much to say about them. It just doesn't say much. We'll
Yeah.
see. I guess they have a test, like you said, against the Rams. What I want to see against the Rams is how does not having AB Godwin affect Brady in this offense? We'll find out. I guess that's really all I can say. I'm I don't know how to feel. I haven't thought about this game in terms of who I'm gonna pick, Rams or Bucks. This is out of the four games. This is one I'm more unsure about. There are probably two other games in which I feel good about my team, maybe even three, but this one is one that I'm not confident in. I could see myself picking Rams in 2 days from now. I could see myself picking Bucks in 2 days from now. I gotta think about it, and we'll see. But yeah, I would say that I would agree that there's really not much to go for this game. So,
Yeah. And just
but
one last thing. What were you gonna say?
no, no, you go.
I was gonna say about the Hurts thing. I just again we keep this very short because it's not we don't really have to talk about it. But I just when you were talking about it, I feel like he's almost a more explosive Teddy Bridgewater. To be honest, I don't know if you think that or not, but that's what I think.
Sure, I could get behind that. I guess what I'm saying by he doesn't make as many ugly mistakes as like some of the rookies did. Like Zach Wilson made
Hmm.
some ugly mistakes. Trevor Lawrence, I don't think his mistakes are like ugly, but yeah, he clearly has some sort of ceiling on how far he can go. And I
Yeah,
could say it's a slightly more explosive, slightly better Teddy Bridgewater. Sure, I could get behind that.
yeah,
Can Teddy Bridgewater win you a game if he has a great roster? Yeah. Can he bring you to the playoffs with a great roster? Yeah. But is he gonna be the guy for the next 15 years? No. And I would say the same goes for Jalen Hurts. The better game on Sunday, the middle game, probably the best game of the whole wild card weekend. Unfortunately, it did not go your way. 49ers Cowboys. I will say we didn't talk about this because we didn't make an episode about before the wild card, but had we picked these games, I mean, I can't say for sure because I didn't, but I probably would have gone with the Niners. I don't know how we would have done that episode if we would have forced you to predict a Cowboys game. We or people who've watched episodes know that you haven't really predicted a Cowboys game since probably pretty early on in the season.
yeah.
So I don't know what you would have predicted. I'm assuming you would have gone with the Cowboys. I probably would have gone Niners. And to me, I guess okay. We'll start. We'll let you start. But okay, so
Yeah, well, before I go into this, I will say I was gonna text you my picks for every single game. I just couldn't do it. Like I just didn't do it, and then I was gonna do it on Sunday, but then the Cowboys were playing, so I didn't want to like jinx anything. I guess it didn't matter, but I would have picked the Cowboys. The two games I would have lost, I would have picked the Cardinals, and I would have picked the Cowboys. Those are the two games I would have lost. All the other games I would have picked the teams that won. Not again, I'm not just saying that because they won. I would have picked that, but going into this game, yeah, I mean, not a great game, obviously, and really, it started from the first snap. From the first drive, I should say. It reminded me of all the past losses. We have 5 losses this year, not including this one, and they all remind me of that. Where the other team, they go down, score a touchdown, or they just like go down, get a field goal, but they look good, and then we get the ball and we just do nothing. Absolutely nothing. I think we went 3 and out, or we got like a first down. Yeah, we went 3 and out, minus 13 yards, didn't do anything. So as soon as that happened, I was panicking. Not panicking, but I was definitely concerned because we were already down 7-0. We gave them the ball to start, thinking that we can get a stop. They went right down the field and scored. Looked dominant doing it. So not a great start. Dak just didn't play well. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Look, you can look at the refs and everything, and we'll talk about that final thing and everything, but you have 14 penalties. That's 14 penalties against you, and there was tons of them that killed them. Pre-snap penalties. That's the officials not. You can't blame the officials for a pre-snap penalty. If you move as an offensive lineman, it's a false start. If you're lined up off sides, you're off sides. Like that's on you. That's not on the official. And that happened multiple times. That killed us at multiple different parts of this game in key situations. Which if you listen to the Clips channel, I've said that I think the entire season that every single time we get a penalty, it's on third down on offense, or it's on third down on defense, or it's when we get a big play. And you saw that in this game. There was multiple times where we had big plays where it was called back because of a penalty. We got a stop on defense on third down, but it was an automatic first down because of a penalty. So that was all in self-inflicted wounds, which you can look at the coaching staff, which I think you have to, because that's where it comes from, the discipline. But Dak. his last three playoff games, his first three playoff games, I should say, he was good in them, not great, but good. This one, he was just bad. I was expecting him to play well, and he just didn't. The Niners, they only rush four, and they have a terrible secondary, and we just couldn't do anything offensively. I mean, they're only rushing four guys, and you can't. Our offensive line couldn't block anyone, and that's what Nick Bosa leaving after the first half. We still couldn't block anyone. The running game was absolutely non-existent at all. The only good rushes was from Dak, and that was just him scrambling. So just it's just a terrible game, to be honest. No sacks on Garoppolo, which is ridiculous with our front four or front seven, I should say, and the ways that we can get to the quarterback. Not even hitting him. I mean, Dak got hit 14 times. I think Garoppolo got hit 5 times. I mean, that's just from a 4-man rush to a 5 or 6-man rush. It's just ridiculous. I'll get into the game, the last couple of plays after you say something, but just absolutely, look, the Niners are a good team for sure, but going into this weekend, I would have rather faced the Niners than the Cardinals. That's the way I was thinking, because we struggle with mobile quarterbacks. And again, maybe it's different if we play the Cardinals. Maybe they don't get blown out or whatever. Maybe they do, but against mobile quarterbacks, we struggled. Garoppolo is not a mobile quarterback, and I thought we could have put pressure on him, which we didn't, or force him to make a mistake. He made one, but it was kind of late, and it was the only one. So just I mean, I have so many more things to say, and I'll say it in the Clips channel video, but just a complete and utter disappointment of a game. This is disappointing. Like this season was a disappointment of a season. Like you said about the Patriots, but everyone would agree this is a disappointment of a season. You go 12-5, you have Super Bowl aspirations, and you just get absolutely embarrassed, honestly, on your home field in a playoff game. That's the way I look at it.
I mean, solely to play devil's advocate, I could argue the Cowboys season is somewhat similar to the Patriots, just with more enhanced expectations. I don't think the Cowboys were legit Super Bowl contenders to start the year. Some people may have predicted it. They're America's team. That's the reality of it. But I'm not sure people were like, this was not supposed to be on the same level as like a Green Bay or a Tampa, to me at least.
No.
Because we weren't expecting the emergence of Diggs and Parsons specifically.
True, but the difference between the Patriots and Cowboys is that you knew the Cowboys always had at least a top 5 offense if they finished first, but really they really weren't first, like if you looked at them. But it was always the defense. If the defense came to play, like I said before the season started, if they were top 15 defense, then we at least have a chance. While the Patriots, they were good defensively, but not great, and their offense obviously was like maybe middle of the pack, and it probably ended up middle of the pack. I think that's probably the difference, where the Cowboys had, at least they knew for sure going to the season they had a top 5 offense, and then the defense came along.
That's the only difference. We could also say the same thing about, I agree with you. I think it is a huge disappointment of a season for the Cowboys, but to play devil's advocate again, I think you could say the same thing about the Patriots. Is we knew we had a really good defense, maybe not super talented, but we just brought in Judon, we just brought in Mills, we just brought in a couple guys. And we have Belichick, who's probably the greatest defensive head coach in NFL history, maybe the greatest head coach in NFL history. So, in the offenses, if they show up, then we're good to go. I mean, that's what, Newton had to show up and be a guy, and he wasn't. Anyways, though, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think the penalties are killer. I mean, you're just not going to win games unless you get the advantage of having the bye, where you don't have to play a game, or you get the advantage of being the 2 seed this year, where you get to play just a team that shouldn't have made the playoffs. You're not going to win a game with 14 penalties. So to me, had you played the Cardinals, I still have the feeling they would have lost, but who knows, I guess. The Cardinals clearly did not look good against the Rams. To me, though, when I was watching this game, and I was just thinking about the narrative of the game, both of these teams tried so hard to lose, and the Cowboys ultimately, in my opinion, just tried to, just were better at losing this game. I don't think either team played a great game. It was an entertaining game, but I don't think either team played a great game. Both quarterbacks tried insanely hard to lose it down the stretch. I mean, Dak didn't play well at all, really, but Jimmy G at least had a solid 3 quarters, and I think that he looked really good at times, and then just had some real just head-scratcher moments and had a bad 4th quarter and tried to lose the game. It really shouldn't have been close. The 49ers should have ran away with this game. And I was rooting for the Cowboys, so I was happy to see them come back. But, I mean, if I was a 49ers fan, I would have been livid at the amount of just opportunities you had to seal the game. It reminded me of, Kyle Shanahan and, any other big game, but it really reminded me of Kyle Shanahan back in, Super Bowl 51, where it's just get a grip on your team. I know he wasn't the head coach back then, but yeah, as far as the Cowboys are concerned, as an organization, I mean, I think you need to take a really hard look at Mike McCarthy. There's just, to me, if I'm Jerry Jones, I'm literally firing him 3 days ago, or I guess not 3 days ago, but yesterday. You know, I would fire him, and if I was another team, I would really take a hard look at, and not in a good way, at Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn. To lose a game like that and have 14 penalties, and the defense and offense just didn't look, they just didn't look fastened and dialed in and ready to go. It's a player thing for sure. It's an execution thing, but it's also a coaching thing. To me, I look at that and I think that's an issue. I don't think Kellen Moore's is X's and O's and just his mind. I don't think that's an issue, and I don't think anybody thinks that's an issue. But there were some moments where he probably got too cute, and some moments where you can really tell that he kind of had that same mentality that a lot of these young guys who were just really just dug into their playbooks. I don't know. It was head scratching to me. I think the 49ers also played a pretty bad game. I don't think they played a really great game. Jimmy looked good and then didn't, but ultimately the Cowboys just tried harder to lose a game. That's really what I took away from it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you were to tell me going into this game that Kittle would go 1 catch, 18 yards, and Debo would go 3 catches, 38 yards, and I know what he did on the ground, he was 10 for 72 with a touchdown, but just through the air, if you were to tell me that, I'm expecting maybe not expecting a win, but I'm for sure expecting us to be ahead and definitely be playing from ahead and having pressure on the quarterback. If Kittle's not having an impact, and Debo, I know he was again great on the ground, but through the air, he makes his big plays through the air. To be honest, I mean he makes his cuts and whatever. He had the great touchdown, but if you were just to tell me that, and then on the offensive side, like you said, with Kellen Moore, which I think teams would hesitate to make. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a team made him their head coach, but I think they definitely study a little bit harder. Pollard 4 carries and Lamb 1 catch. It's those are our 2 best playmakers. Now I know Cooper's the best receiver, but he's not the best playmaker. And honestly, I'm kind of over him, to be honest. He's such hit or miss. He's so streaky, and I don't know. I'll talk about it in the clips, but Lamb should be what Debo is. You should hand the ball off to him. You should just throw screens to him, get the ball to him. I don't understand how the Niners offense, and I every single game I saw this weekend, there are guys who are just wide open. They're just open. It's just ridiculous. And then when you look at the Cowboys, somehow they have the #1 offense. But if you, again, I watched every single snap of every single game. There are so many times where guys are just not even close to being open. And again, that's Amari Cooper, that's CeeDee Lamb, that's Gallup when he's healthy. I don't know if that's scheme or if that's just the players, but something's off, and it's been off since the Patriots game. I mean, that's the last time this offense actually looked like the #1 offense in the league. Now, again, the Washington game, the Philadelphia game, I don't even count those. I mean, just hearing the teams that I just listed, that shouldn't even count. I don't know. Something is clearly wrong there, and it just makes no sense. I don't know. I don't know. I can't even say anything more about that.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys went 6-0 against the NFC East, and then went 6-6 against everybody else, including this game. So I'm not telling you they're an average team, but I think their record is slightly overinflated because of the bad division. I think their record is, or should be, a slightly above average team, and I think that's kind of what they showed, on Sunday. Now, one thing I will say, I mean, yeah, with Kellen Moore, I think earlier in the year he was looking like a slam dunk head coaching hire for a lot of teams, and going into this offseason, clearly not the case anymore. You have arguably an A- at every single position, and to not score more than 20 points against the Niners is just disgusting. Dak Prescott is arguably is probably an A- quarterback, arguably an A quarterback. Zeke and Pollard are arguably an A- or an A running back duo. Your receiving core is arguably the best in the league, especially if you consider injuries being a thing. I'm not saying it is, but it's debatable. It's at least an A- receiving core. And then Dalton Schultz may not be an A tight end, but he had an A season. So
Yep.
he should be considered an A tight end going into this game, and to only score 17 points is really bad. So, and I want to say the Cowboys should look at Dak, but the reality of it is, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to trade him? No. You're going to there's nothing you can do. You just have to hope he doesn't play like this again. And I do still like Dak, and I think Dak can win a Super Bowl. But if I was a Cowboys fan, I would be worried about that, because kind of like how in the NBA, how you have like the purgatory in the middle of the NBA where like you're not getting lottery picks and you're also just clearly not a championship contender. There's kind of that same thing in the NFL too, not nearly to the same extent, because it's one and done in the playoffs, and it's once a week games, and the games are just so much more variable than the NFL than the NBA. But when you have a quarterback that's pretty good but not elite every single week, that's kind of to me like the NBA, similar to like the NBA like 8 seed purgatory thing, because you're just not going to be able to trade him or do anything with him to get a Mahomes or a Rodgers. You just can't go and get that guy. But you're also not in a drafting position to where you're realistically going to go draft a guy like that. So you're in a tough spot, because you have to pay him, you have to treat him like he's a top quarterback, but you don't get the same results on every Sunday, and you're not in a position where you can go draft Trevor Lawrence or go draft this guy and be in a position where you can trade Jimmy G because you have the 3rd overall pick, and you can go draft Trey Lance. You're just not in that position. So you just got to hope that Dak plays like a top 5 quarterback every week, or I guess like a top 8 quarterback every week. But the reality of it is with, any quarterback who's ranked in 7 to like 13 is a lot of weeks he's going to look like the 7th best quarterback, but a lot of weeks he's going to just look average or look not great. And this week we got that type of result with Dak Prescott. So if I was a Cowboys fan, I would be slightly concerned. But yeah.
Okay, now we'll move to the end of the game. Obviously, the most controversial part of the game. I have a question first. It's something that I wondered before the end of the game. I wondered it. There was, I don't know if you remember, but there was a point where they tried to play where like it was 3rd down, you throw it across the middle, and then it was Cedric Wilson, you throw it backwards, and you're throwing to Tony Pollard. Like that play, they've done that a couple times this year. Obviously, it didn't work out. He threw it out of bounds, but let's say if you're so at the end of the game, obviously they're driving down the field. They made up like 50 yards in like 20 seconds, or maybe even less, probably like 15 seconds, which was pretty impressive to get down to the spot that they were. But before the scramble, which I'll ask if you like that play or not after, but I should have this question because I haven't seen anyone say anything yet. But let's say you did that play again, and again the middle of the field was wide open, they had like 4 guys each on like the sidelines, and then like 3 at the goal line. So you had like they were at the 50, they're at the 41-yard line. So you had like at least 20 yards of like no one even coming close to touching you. Let's say they did that play, and then when Cedric Wilson, like the clock was running out or someone was about to tackle him, he just threw it out of bounds, backwards obviously. And let's say like they had Tony Pollard there, but it wouldn't even matter because technically it's a lateral. Like if you were to throw it out of bounds, and let's say they lose 2 yards by him throwing it backwards, like, would that technically count? Now, maybe you don't know, but like, what would that count as? Like, just the clock would stop and the ball is placed at the 30-yard line? Like, would you think that would count? Because I was wondering that even before that play happened, and then after the play happened, I thought it as well.
Wait, so you wonder if like it would count as the ball being out of bounds, and you would just place the ball where the ball went out of bounds?
Yeah, because technically it's a backwards pass, so it's technically like a lateral. It's not a forward pass, and it's going out of bounds. Like you see multiple times, like guys will fumble and it goes out of bounds. The clock stops, and it's still your ball, and the ball's placed there. So isn't that another way of stopping the clock without having to rush and clock it?
Well, I don't think so, but I technically don't know. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at the game and see what happened, but that is interesting.
Because I was thinking, like, isn't that just a better way of not having to run up and try and clock it? Because like, I don't think there's a rule that says you can't do it, because like they did it earlier in the game and the clock stopped. It was 3rd down, so they had to punt, but the clock stopped. And they didn't call a penalty on it or anything because it's a backwards pass. So like, I feel like if you could just throw it out of bounds and like make it look like you're trying to do a lateral, like I feel like that would technically work.
It's interesting. Maybe it's just really niche, because the reality, like, I guess if we look at the Dak Prescott play as a thing where you could have theoretically done that, I mean, it's just like when you're in the middle of the field and it takes at least probably 3/4 of a second to realistically get yourself in a position where you're gonna confidently throw the ball in a good enough place, also for sure out of bounds with no defenders able to tip it or anything. Maybe it's just too hard to pull off and not worth it, and it's easier to clock it in most cases. I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch it, but I guess that would be interesting if that was the case. Then we'll see. The thing I thought about from that play was first off, yeah, I mean had that play worked, that would have been for sure a solid gain. But also, I think that's the thing where that's kind of why Kellen Moore gets the hype he gets. Is I think that's a pretty creative play, and I think it actually could potentially be something that a lot of teams use going forward, and not just in a situation where you need like a trick play to, give you some momentum. That could be. I mean, it really all it really is just a kind of a drag right across the middle of the field, and you got a guy in the left that you lateral to, and as long as the corner on the left bites like he did on Wilson, then I don't see why you couldn't do that more going forward, and not just in a situation where it's late in a game and you need a trick play to kind of bring you back into it. The answer would be it's high risk, but I mean if you practice it enough, how high risk can it really be? So
Yeah.
going forward, I think that could be a play that's used more often. The rule thing, I'm not sure on. I'd have to go back. I'd have to go back and watch the game, and then also just like do research online.
Yeah, but again, that was something I was thinking of. But obviously, that wasn't the play that they called. But what did I'll give my answer first, but I'm going to ask you obviously, what did you think of the quarterback draw? There's 14 seconds left. You're at the 41-yard line. I don't hate the play call at all. Honestly, I think it's a great play call because if you're able to get the clock stopped, let's say all you need is 1 second. It doesn't seem like you're agreeing with me, but would I rather want two shots at the 41-yard line or one shot at the 24-yard line? I think I'd rather, I mean, like I just said, I think I'd rather have one shot at the 24-yard line. I think it's way better odds. Now, again, either odds still aren't great. I don't even think either one would work out. But 41 yards, if you're 41 yards away, and again, you're backing up, you're getting, momentum forward, you're probably 50 yards away, to be honest. Like, what are the odds of you really catching that ball? Like, even out of two tries. Like, Rodgers has done it, but, like, that's just crazy odds. You see so many times throughout the week, if you were to count all the Hail Marys this season, it's probably like a handful of times they've worked compared to, like, 50 plus times that they haven't. So, like, 24 yards away, you can even try and do a lateral play even. Like, let's say you get down to the 5-yard line. You could try a lateral play. Like, if you need to make something happen, you're only 5 or 10 yards away compared to being, just a jump ball where it could just bat up in the air or they could bat it down. Like, I feel like the odds are honestly better. Or you could just come up with a really good route and then someone's open in the back of the end zone. I feel like the play call was good. It just, obviously, the execution just didn't work out. And, the ref obviously wasn't in the right position. And I'll talk about that after.
So the yard markers 41 and 24. Those were the correct.
Those are the
right?
markers.
Okay. So my logic on it, I didn't love the play call. I don't hate the play call necessarily, but I definitely didn't love it. And my reasoning really is I just first off, well, I'm not sure there would have been two shots from the 41. I'm pretty sure it would have been one. Maybe you get lucky and it's two, but I'm pretty sure with only 14 seconds. I'm pretty sure only.
I think you're getting two shots of 14 seconds.
I mean, if it's like a Hail Mary type play where it's either to me it would have been if you would have gotten either it would have been like one throw to see if you could maybe gain another 10 or 15 on an out route.
Well, they were playing the sidelines though. That's
no, I know,
problem.
but I know. I'm just saying, like with 14 seconds, I don't think you're getting two shots to the end zone. I think you're getting one attempt at an out route, and then you throw it away, and then you have your shot at the end zone, or you just take one shot to the end zone and pray that somehow the time it takes for them to run and throw the ball and take for the ball to actually fall to the ground or be caught. I think you're looking at more than 14 seconds there. I think you're looking at 15 or 16. So I think it only would have been one shot. But the reason I didn't love the play calls is I just think there's too much room for variable there. And also, and the more important point is, what is the difference in odds of you having a successful play from the 41 and the 24? The lateral thing you talked about, I think you can realistically do from either the 41 or the 24. Is it easier from the 24? Yes. How much easier is it at the 24? I'm not certain that it's that much easier to pull off a play like that at the 24 versus the 41. I think if the lateral works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And again, at the 41, you're looking at a Hail Mary, or at least, pretty much a Hail Mary. At the 24, I mean, it's not a Hail Mary, but when the defense knows you have to throw it in the end zone, I mean, it's pretty much still a Hail Mary. It's not like a complete just chuck it up as high as you can and hopefully, something happens that's pretty lucky, but it's pretty much still a 50-50 ball. So I'm not sure the odds are that different enough to warrant the play that happened. And that's where the variable stuff just comes in. There's just too many variables. First off, it's no guarantee the play is going to work with the quarterback draw. And even if it does, like which it did, there's just too much room for error, whether it's your own team or whether it's the refs. I just didn't really find it to be worth it. So yeah, and I will say if you're gonna run a play like that though, I don't blame the refs, to be honest. Listen, is it did the ref play that situation perfectly? Obviously not. To me, I just would have alerted the ref that whether it's Moore or McCarthy or anybody on the sideline or it's Dak, during that drive or before the drive starts, hey, by the way, we're going to run a quarterback draw and we need you to be ready to place the ball down because we're going to draw it and immediately spike it. And clearly it just was not thought to that level. To me, if you have a Belichick at the helm there or any of the all-time greats, I'm not going to say Andy Reid because Andy Reid has his own clock management problems too. To me, that play, if you were to do it, is done well. And I'm not saying Belichick would do a play like that, but to me, to not, first off, not only did you not try to tell the ref about what you're going to do, which teams do. I mean, teams will say, hey, ref, look out for this, look out for that, whether it's, first, and like terms of penalties and stuff, but they'll also say, like, hey, ref, like, I'm, planning to do this. And I think that all that stuff is perfectly fine. And I don't know why they didn't do that. Also, they just clearly didn't even think about what they're going to do after the quarterback draw because Dak doesn't even hand the ball to the ref. I mean, he goes to hand it to the center, not even realizing that the ref has to touch the ball. I'm not saying I would have realized that because I wouldn't have, but I'm not an NFL quarterback and I don't get paid $40 million a year. To me, it's not even, I don't even necessarily blame Dak. I blame the coaching staff. That's something that, Dak has to just be the best quarterback he can be. As a head coach and as a coaching staff in general, your job is to kind of handle those things and put your quarterback in the best situation to be able to do a play like that. I didn't love the play call, and it clearly just was not executed well, and I'm not going to blame the refs for it because I just think I'll blame the refs for the 2018 PI call. I'll blame the refs for some egregious penalties that aren't called or are called. I just don't think you can blame the ref for that. I think that falls squarely on the coaching staff.
Look, I don't blame this game on the refs. The Cowboys lost this game because they lost the game for the way they played. But those two things you said, I think, are completely ridiculous. No, I don't think any coach would have the wherewithal in that situation where the play before they went out of bounds, but like you're still rushing to the line. You're not like you're huddling up. You didn't call timeout. They didn't like have a chance to like go to the ref and say something. I don't think any coach would do that. I don't care who the coach is. I don't think any coach would do that. One, then two, I like the one for Dak for giving the ball to the center. One, that's the way they practice, so that's not something he did like in the spite of the moment. They said they practiced like that since OTAs, since the summer. So that's the way that they do it. That's the way that he said he was taught to do it.
But that's what I'm saying
though. That was before McCarthy was there. Like he said, he's been doing that since he got in the league, and he knew. Coach has been? He knew. Well, yeah, a former quarterback. One, but. Two, he knew the ref had to touch the ball, but the ref only had to touch the ball. The ref, if you saw the replay, obviously, the ref spotted the ball. He took the ball, spotted it back a yard, and then put it back to where it originally was. So all he do is just touch it. If he just touches the ball, that's all he has to do. A fingertip, that's all he has to do is touch the ball, then back out of the area. Instead, he picks up he runs into Dak because he's 50 yards away because he didn't follow the play. The one thing I'll say about that is that there's a rule which in 2016, they said that in the final 2 minutes of a game, the ref is supposed to be in the offensive backfield because like they used to be in like the linebacker position, but they could obviously get hit or whatever. But they said if it's an obvious spike situation, then the ref should be in the defensive backfield, not the offensive backfield. That's what they said that's in the rules. So that's on the refs on that instance because now that's not knowing the rules. And then two, again, all you have to do is touch the ball, not spot it back a yard, then put it back, and then That did him running into Dak and him doing that. That's 2 seconds off the board, and he was also 25 yards down the field when he should have been in the defensive backfield. Again, the refs didn't lose the game, but for that one particular play, he cost. I mean, that's what 4 or 5 seconds right there that he cost just because of him not knowing the rules and not being in the right spot. When literally that's the only job he had to do. So that's the one gripe I have with the refs.
I'm not gonna tell you they didn't ref the game perfectly. They didn't. First off, I'm not a refing expert, but he's not the only ref on the field. I'm not exactly sure.
That's his job, though.
So you're telling me in this situation, so there wouldn't be a ref in the backfield then. In that case, if
No,
that
if it's an obvious spike situation, there should be no ref in the offensive backfield. He should be in the defensive backfield.
and the other refs are just in the same spots they'd be typically
Same
in.
spots they're originally in. Yeah.
Okay, sure. First off, I don't think that really changes the outcome of what the ref does in that play.
But he's not running from 25 yards away, though.
But he's still running from some sort of yardage away. No?
But let's say he's in the defensive backfield. Again, when he's in the offensive backfield, he's not 2 yards behind the running back. He was however many yards behind. Like he was on the Cowboys side of the field. So he had to run. Again, they were at the 24-yard line. He had to at least run 25 yards. If he's in the defensive backfield, that's already, 10, 15 yards that he was already making up because he's in the defensive backfield. I mean, that's a second or two that's on the clock still. Even let's say he still runs into Dak somehow, and he still has to spot the ball like that. There still should be 1 or 2 seconds, and the refs on the sideline said that they should have reviewed it with New York. They told that to the Cowboys coaching staff. They said they should have reviewed it, and they should have put 1 second back on the clock. So that's also out there.
I'm not disagreeing with you that they didn't ref the game perfectly. I just don't think that's that like egregious of an error. You're still expecting the ref to make a really good heat of the moment decision. And on the touching the ball thing, the ref also, or all the refs also still have to make sure that the ball is placed in the correct spot. I understand he moved it backyard and then moved it back to where it was, but when the ball is given directly to somebody, we see all the time when a receiver makes a catch, he will put the ball forward like a yard, maybe as like a small effort to see if it'll be placed there. I mean, there's no, that could have been the exact same case when the ball's given to the center. The ref still has to make sure the ball is put in the correct spot. I know it technically, I guess in hindsight, was put in the correct spot, but you still have to, it's not like he's going to instantly be able to tell the second that he's done after running 25 yards. And if he was in the correct spot, we'll call it 15 yards, that he would be for sure that it's in that spot. I'm not sure that there'd be anything more than 1 second. So, yeah. And there's still more variables that could have theoretically happened that didn't on that play. To me, I just don't see why it's worth it. In my opinion, if it was any coach other than McCarthy in that situation, or not any coach, but if let's just plug in any other top 5 coach who's not like Andy Reid and has had a track record of like clock management issues, I just don't think that play is run. And I think if a quarterback with a lot of awareness that was mobile was in that spot, I don't think they would run that play. I flat out, I just don't. And also, I don't care that Dak was trained to do that throughout his whole career. It's still Mike McCarthy's fault. It's still Kellen Moore's fault. It's still slightly Dak Prescott's fault. I mean, you're in the NFL. You should still understand that. And I listen, I'm not an NFL quarterback, and I've never played football at anything more than like a freshman year high school level. But if I was an NFL quarterback, I would probably come to the realization especially when I'm in the NFL for 5 years and in college for like 3 or 4, that after every play I see the ref touching the ball pretty much. I mean, like that's just it's almost like common sense at that point. If you're, in your like 5th year in the NFL and after every single play you can see the ref having to touch the ball. I mean, like at what point would you think that he doesn't have to touch the ball? You know what I mean? I don't know. In a situation like that, there's just too many variables. I just didn't think it was worth it. And clearly it wasn't in hindsight. I'm not going to tell you the refs played it perfectly. They obviously didn't. But even then, if they did play it perfectly, congratulations. You probably played a coin flip decision on whether or not you'd have the time left to get that last playoff. And even then, it was only a 17-yard gain. So you have a Hail Mary from the 24 instead of the 41. Really. I don't know if you'd call that a Hail Mary, but essentially you have, a 4 verticals play in Madden pretty much. Or 5, I guess. 5 verticals play in Madden instead of a Hail Mary. That's pretty much what you got yourself.
That is, McCarthy did say in his post game presser that that is the play they would have ran was 5 verticals, and they said they felt way more confident in that than just a typical Hail Mary. So yeah,
I
that's what they
just
were
disagree
saying.
with that, and that's where that's where I would say that's if I'm Jerry Jones, I literally fire Mike McCarthy right on the spot. I just don't agree with it. Listen, are you more confident in a 5 verts from 24 than essentially almost a 5 verts from 41? I mean, sure, I guess, but it's not. I just don't see a world in which it's worth the risk. Because I don't think this is the worst possible situation that could have worked out for that quarterback draw. There were other, if this play was ran 1,000 times in 1,000 different dimensions, there are still probably at least 50 other dimensions in which this case, this particular play turns out worse than it did in our universe. Is that fair to say?
Like he gets like tackled like 3 yards or something,
Like it either
or
doesn't work out or he makes it further than 14 yards, and then it just then you're milking more time off the clock.
well, I mean he knew when he had to slide. He slid with 8 seconds on the clock.
I mean, well, I mean, to me, he clearly didn't know when to slide because if he did know, he would have slid earlier.
I mean 8 seconds on. I mean like 8 seconds on the clock when everyone I mean they got set up with like 4 seconds left. Like I mean, it was there. Like I don't know. Like again, I know what you're saying, and obviously there's a risk when you do a play like that when you have no timeouts, and obviously you need at least a second, and you need so many variables to go your way. But I mean, from the point where he slid, I thought it was executed perfectly. It was just after that. Again, maybe he could have slid 5 yards more, 5 yards, further or closer, but I mean like I don't know. Like if you're sliding at the 30-yard line, then you should have just ran 2 plays from the 41 because what's the difference between 41 and 30? But like 24 yards, like I feel like 24 yards is like I feel like that's where most offenses kind of score touchdowns. If you're not in the red zone, I feel like you're kind of scoring it from the 20 to the 30 yards. Like that's where you are. Like the 24-yard line, I feel like
Well,
you're like there's a lot of there's a I mean they scored a 24 like a 20 what was it? Amari Cooper had a 24-yard touchdown I think earlier in the game. So like that's just the way I feel like offenses work a lot of the time. It was a 20-yard touchdown. So I mean like it's basically right at that yardage. I mean 30
well,
yards I feel like is a difference.
my two things are that yes, obviously, if you're not in the red zone, yeah, you're probably gonna score a touchdown from the 20 to the 30. Two, the difference between most offenses or a lot of offensive plays being scored from the 25-ish yard line and not the 41 is that defenses aren't playing a complete prevent defense where sometimes defenses even bring out a guy like a Gronk or a Mike Evans or a Randy Moss or a Calvin Johnson to play goal line, play a wide receiver in the end zone. This play, if you run it from the 24, it's not like they're playing the same defense they did when Amari scored his touchdown, where there's just it's single coverage, there's no safety over the top dedicated to literally make that play not happen. That's the difference. Is in the first, every play until that game or until that play in every single game, you don't play the same defense. That's just
What
to me. That's so.
Again, the list is the last thing I'll say. The only difference is that from 41 yards, you're throwing like a towering ball where it's just going to come down and like no, you don't make a mistake on it. The only mistake you can make is if you tip it up in the air if you're a defender. Like everyone's in the right position because you can just see the ball. There's so much time. From 24 yards, you could fit a window. I mean, like you could fit a window. Someone could make a mistake. Like even though they're all at the goal line or all in the end zone, someone could run into someone. Someone could fall down. Like there's way more of a chance of it working from the 24 in the terms of just the ball placement and someone making a mistake than like a Hail Mary where like you literally see the ball for 10 seconds in the air. Like it's just way less of a chance someone makes a mistake on a Hail Mary than from a 24-yard line where you could fit a window. I mean, it may be an impossible window, but you could fit a window from 24 yards.
On the defense, you would theoretically play on a prevent defense when you have to fit the ball into that. First off, it's a really small window. Second off, it's only in the end zone. I would actually I don't know that I would agree with the fact that it's easier for a defense to have some sort of blown play from the 24 than the 41. Even if a defender slips or something at the 24, you've still got literally 6 guys playing prevent. So it's not like you're gonna fit it into some. I just don't see the window
But you
in
could fit
which.
it into a window where, like a Hail Mary, there's only one spot. It's only one spot the ball can go to. Like even if a guy falls, everyone else is in that one spot. Where even if it's from the 24, you have other guys running routes and going to different spots of the end zone. He can have different targets, and it's a bullet pass, not a lob pass. If one guy falls down, you could fit something on the side, like on the sideline or something, where if that guy fell down, he's not covering the sideline. It's just again, would they even have scored if they got 1 second on the clock? Probably not. So, I mean, there's also that argument, but I just think they had a better chance with that than two from the 41, in my opinion. But
Yeah, I mean, I would just disagree. I would disagree, but agree to disagree. I think yeah, I think you would have had a better shot at either maybe two plays at the end zone, or one play where you try to fit in like a 15-yard out route. If it's not there, you throw it away and then you take your one play. But yeah.
but we'll move to the next game, which again is similar to the Bucks Eagles game. I really don't have much to say about this. It you know besides from the fumble recovery for a touchdown. I mean, I watched this game. I wasn't really paying too much close attention just because the Cowboys literally just lost. I wasn't really trying to watch another game. But even if the Cowboys won, I probably still wasn't paying much attention to this game because we all knew what was going to happen, and it's exactly what happened. So unless you have anything to say, I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, I was holding out hope that the Steelers would somehow win this game. Actually, and I kind of realized this. I was like, why am I even hoping the Steelers win this game? I don't care what happens at this point because I'm not hoping the Chiefs lose because the Patriots have an easier road because their road is over. Um, I mean, the Steelers were giving me, I guess, a little bit of hope early on in the game with the defensive touchdown to start. But I mean, it was clear from the start that even with the 7-0 lead for the Steelers, you're just not going anywhere when you can't do anything on offense. So at some point, the Chiefs, I knew the Chiefs were going to break out and just score 30 unanswered points pretty much, and that's pretty much what they did, and they ended up winning 42-21. I have nothing to say. I don't think it says much for the Chiefs for next week. The Steelers, I mean, solid career for Ben Roethlisberger. Obviously, going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I guess we could talk about Ben Roethlisberger for a bit. I mean, thoughts on Ben Roethlisberger's career that would be different than just like he's a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Um, I mean,
Where would you rank him all time? And would you rank him above any of the current? I mean, I guess not current all time greats, but like the all time greats, or not all time, but from 2000 and on. I mean, where are
yeah,
we
it's like
putting him?
it's weird. Like from 2000 on, you would have like obviously Brady and Manning, Peyton obviously like above him, but like Breeze, Ben has two Super Bowls, Breeze has one. Like Ben kind of like was always competitive, while the Saints definitely had some down years for sure. I mean, there was a couple years where they were terrible. Not Breeze's fault, but they were bad. But I don't really know where to rank him, to be honest, because he was a great quarterback for sure. But there was I feel like he's almost like a better Eli, where he was for sure better, but there were some times where he was like, what are you doing? Again, they made the playoffs almost every single year, and he was for sure big in some of those games. But if you look back at that stretch from 2014 to 2018, I guess, like when it was him and Bell and AB, and they still had a pretty good defense, and they had one of the best offensive lines, during that time period. The fact that they never got to a Super Bowl during that, when they arguably had one of the best receivers in the league, and at the time easily the best running back in the league, that's concerning, especially because he was still putting up numbers. He was throwing for 5,000 yards. He was throwing for 40 touchdowns. He was healthy and everything. It's weird. And again, that's kind of the Ben that we grew up on. We didn't really grow up with the early 2000s Ben when he was winning the Super Bowls and that stuff. But I really don't know where to rank him. I would have to look at the quarterbacks and see, but it's definitely, I feel like he's just he's a much better Eli Manning, but I feel like he's almost on that side than the other side of the all-time great, just a true great quarterback. I think he's still I think he is close to that, but I think he's closer to the Eli Manning side of that.
I think the unfortunate reality for why we didn't see Ben make a Super Bowl from what you said, that 2014 to 2018 gap, is because the Patriots were in his conference. I mean, I just think that's the reality. And and Peyton Manning was in that conference too towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
And throughout all of Ben's career, he had to play a prime Brady and a prime Manning pretty much until Manning retired and until Brady left the conference. So I think that's just the reality of it. When you have to play against a prime Manning and Brady every single year, you're just not going to win more than 2 Super Bowls unless you're on that level, and he obviously wasn't. He's a tier below that level. The interesting part to me is where would I rank him versus Drew Brees, because he's above Manning or Eli Manning for sure. I mean, they had
Yeah,
the same
yeah,
amount of Super Bowls, and Ben just had a better career.
yeah.
He's above Rivers, who was in the same draft as him for sure. It's actually interesting. I've never really thought to compare Drew Brees to Ben, but they kind of played in the same. They played in the same era, and there are very different quarterbacks, but they're clear. Both of those guys are clearly not on the same level as Peyton and Brady. But they're I don't know. I mean, who would you have ranked above the other, Brees or Ben? I think most
Yeah,
people would say Brees.
I would probably lean Breeze because the accuracy, like just like the not stupid throws. Like I know what he's gonna give me at all times. And again, when he still had his arm before his arm gave out the last couple of years, like I mean, he was throwing the ball deep. Like he could throw it. Like the problem for that team was that they just never had a defense until like the end, and then they tried to piece it together, but like his arm just gave out. Like if they had that defense, like in the 2010 window from 2010 to 2015 or 2016, whatever, like I think he would have a serious case for like at least one, maybe two, but probably like at least a case for one Super Bowl again. Because that's when he was like really in his prime. That's when he was throwing for 5,000 yards every single year, throwing like insane numbers. But I'd probably say Breeze, honestly.
To me, I literally could not tell you. I'd have to think more about it off camera or whatever. But I mean, their careers are just so different. But the fact that Ben probably had the tougher road to the Super Bowl almost every single year versus
Yeah,
Breeze, and managed to have more Super Bowls than Breeze. I mean, I think that's a feat. And I mean, anybody who's watched this podcast or listened to it knows that I am not a Breeze guy. I may be the biggest Breeze hater out there. I'm not the biggest Breeze hater out there, but if you were to compare me to guys on the national spotlight, I probably am more of a Breeze hater than a lot of them. Um, I just Breeze had an easier road, had a top 5 head coach every single year, whereas I mean Ben had a really good coach too,
we need Tomlin.
but I'm not sure Tomlin's ever been perceived as a better head coach than Sean Payton.
Maybe not, but close, like close enough to the point where it's not like it's five and number 15.
No, but it's like number 4 to 6 or 4 to 7 versus number like 8 to 10, which I think is not a huge gap, but to also add in the fact that Ben got further with a worse head coach almost every single year than Breeze is crazy. And I don't know how to rate Breeze, because he had those 3 years where he went 7-9, but after that, I mean, his team was perennially like a top seed, and he never really showed up in the playoffs. And it's not like his roster was never good enough to legit win a Super Bowl, because Breeze probably should have at least 2 Super Bowls. He only has one.
Well, and yeah, he can make the case of 2018 as well.
And that's,
I
to me,
mean,
that's just not a case. I mean,
I'm
listen,
not
was it
saying
an
I'm not saying
egregious
like
call? But yeah, but
yeah, I know, but like that's for sure a case that the British people would use against in an argument, obviously. And even Apple's like, I mean, if the safety just makes a play on the ball or just makes a normal play, like they're not the Saints win that game, and then who knows? They go to Philadelphia, they probably have a good chance of winning that game. So like, I'm not obviously those are hard arguments to use because it's just so out of your hands and it's so random and like you can't control it. But those are arguments you can use, and even though Brees had the better head coach, and I would agree, I think Ben had the way more talented rosters throughout his career. I mean, like again, the defenses for the Saints were not good for a lot of those years, and even offensively, he had a good offensive team. But like, if you look at the weapons that Ben had throughout his career, like every single year, he had Bell and Brown, or he had Hines Ward, Rashard Mendenhall. I think he played with Bettis early in his career. So like, he always had insane weapons around him at all times. While Breeze did, but they weren't as good as those guys, like Marquise Colston, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. But like again, two of those guys were at the end, and then in that middle part, like I guess he had Reggie Bush, but like I mean, I'd rather have Le'Veon Bell than Reggie Bush. So I feel like there's definitely arguments favoring Ben way heavily on the team talent of the talent of the team.
yeah, you kind of cut out.
And
Is there an argument? You kind of cut it a little bit at the beginning of that. Was there an argument other than what was the argument other than the 2018 argument that you had for Breeze, or was that the only one you presented? It was
Yeah,
something about
no,
playing the Eagles.
I said 2017. I said the Minneapolis game. I said
Okay, yeah.
it's still tough to use, obviously, but if the safety just makes a play, a normal play, and just tackles him because the game's over. There's no time on the clock. They're playing Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game with a chance to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's another opportunity right there.
I mean, I think those are kind of fair, although I wouldn't necessarily say that's an argument to put somebody over another person in the all-time rankings. But I could say I could probably, if we went through Ben's career and looked at every single year and kind of microscoped in, I think we could find something maybe not egregious as 2018 and maybe not as iconic of a moment as the 2017 Minneapolis Miracle, but we could probably find stuff similar to those calls and plays that could have favored Ben. So I think it goes both ways. But I guess one thing is I could say Ben didn't underachieve or overachieve. He just like fulfilled expectations. I think in hindsight, when we ask ourselves how many Super Bowls, knowing Ben, what Ben had and what his competition was in his conference, how many Super Bowls should Ben have had? I'm not willing. I'm not. I mean, I think the answer probably is two.
Yeah, I would probably say two as well. Like, yeah, I think the expectation would be two, but the chance would for sure be three, I would say.
Could have three, could have one. But yeah, I would say the expectation would be two, and I think he fulfilled it. I don't think he did. I don't think he did worse than expectations or better in hindsight. I think he did normal. Breeze, on the other
Yeah.
hand, I think the expectation is at least two, and I would probably say in hindsight, you probably as a Saints fan should have expected three. I mean,
I
you had
I
a
would
top three quarterback essentially, maybe top at worst top five, pretty much from the years 2011 to 2018, pretty much, maybe 2019. I
I
mean,
would say I would say the expectation was two, for sure. Like you three, you probably could argue it, but I don't know. At the same time, I don't know. It's just like the way I look at it, it's like the defenses for like the two were just so different. Like again, the Saints had some good defenses in there, but like he never had Troy Polamalu on that defense. He never had a James Harrison or one Defensive Player of the Year on his. Like he never had some of those type of guys. Even like a what Brett Kiesel, Casey Hayward, or Cameron Hayward. Like Ben's had some really good players on defense throughout his career. Like who's the best player that Drew Brees has ever had on the defensive side of the ball? Like, Cam Jordan, like is that the best player he's probably played with? Like in terms of like numbers at least, I like you can't even come up with anyone that comes close to Troy Polamalu. Like that's you know I think there's an argument there.
I think that's fair, but I think I do think, and I know I've already said this like twice, but I do think it's equally as big that he got to play in the NFC. I mean, when you look at 2017 and 2018 particularly, when we get further back in like 2013, 2012, my memory is not as good because it's obviously like more than a few years ago, but it's not like he had lost to some all-time great team. In 2017, he lost to a team that went and got flattened by a team that was led by Nick Foles. I know that team obviously went on to win the Super Bowl, but that doesn't change the fact that was easily a winnable game, and you were favored going into that game. I know it was the Minneapolis Miracle, but that doesn't negate that you could have easily played better in quarters 1 through 4 and up to the last play. And in 2018, it's not like that PI call. It's not like right after that PI call, the Rams just won the game. Like we're not going to ignore the fact that Drew Brees threw an interception
Yeah,
after that. He had a chance to win the game after that. If he just scored a touchdown, he would have won the game. He throws an interception, and obviously the Rams go into the Super Bowl. And it's not like that. If that Rams team was like, again, if that Rams team happened to be the 2014 New England Patriots or the 2013 Seattle Seahawks or maybe a team like that, then I would say, you know what, that's fine. I know he threw an interception, but his year might not have been. That Rams team he lost to got scored 3 points in the Super Bowl. Like had he won that game, I'm not saying he would have won the 2018 Super Bowl, but that's not a year where it's like that. I mean, the 2018 Patriots were not a very good team. That was a team that had a
and
similar, arc to like the current Patriots teams, which is they look awful going down the stretch. So,
yeah, and again, that's where the case for the Drew Brees fans would be 2018 that he'd probably have two Super Bowls because that Patriots team was awful. I mean, you have to admit that they were not a good team that year. So like,
But
and
I
that Saints team was a really good team. I mean, they were averaging like 33 points a game. Like the
but that's an
Rams were like
argument.
33 and 34.
I would argue that's an argument against Drew Brees. You had a stacked team. You had one of the best defenses in the league. You had Alvin Kamara. You had you had a stacked team. That was an insanely stacked team. Probably the best team in the NFC. Maybe the best talented team in the league. Debatably, maybe the Rams were talented as well, but they had Goff. If Drew Brees is legitimately a top quarterback, then I mean, if he's on a different tier than Ben and shouldn't be in the conversation, same conversation as Ben, I'm not saying that that's what you think, but if that's the case, then he should have won the Super Bowl that year. And to me, it is an argument against Drew Brees because it's not like they lost the game right after that egregious ref call. He had a chance to win the game and threw an interception and they lost the game on a field goal, on overtime.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
to me, it's an argument against Drew Brees that you had that setup of an opportunity to win the Super Bowl, and you ultimately threw an interception in overtime and you lost the game on a field goal.
yeah. No, I
So,
no, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, and I again, I'm not saying 2017 and 2018 are like good arguments to have as to why your quarterback couldn't win another Super Bowl, but it's for sure an argument and something you at least have to take into consideration. But again, I see your point of view from it as well.
yeah, I mean,
But
this conversation started with Brees versus Roethlisberger. I probably go Brees too. I mean, I know I just gave the argument for Ben. I probably still go Brees too, but I mean, I think it's closer than most people would think before they legitimately thought about it.
yeah, like if you were just to ask someone like instant reaction, they almost like 95% of the people would probably say Breeze. But like if you were given 5 minutes, like think about it, like I still think they'd say Breeze, but it would come down to like like it would be a way less percentage would probably say Breeze. Like it would do people would start to like realize like the stats and then all that other stuff. So yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
I
But
think it would. Yeah, to me, I think people think there's some huge like gap between them all time, when the gap is really just like,
yeah,
to me,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just not that big.
But we still have one more game. It was last night's game from a recording. We'll make this quick because we've honestly gone on really long. But there's just one thing I want to say. We did a top five quarterbacks to start a franchise with earlier this year. Um, and I have your list in front of me. You went Mahomes, Kyler, Burrow, Herbert, Russell Wilson. After last night's game, and it's only one game, but it's still obviously national TV playoff game. Would you move Kyler down on that list? And not
Um,
saying Burrow, not saying because of Burrow, your thoughts on Burrow, but like, would you just move Kyler down on that list?
well, that's a tough question because seeing what I've seen from Burrow and seeing what I've seen from Kyler, yes. But if we're just, I mean, yeah, I would. I mean, is there a way for me to not think about what Burrow's done?
No, I know. I obviously you have to take that into consideration, but I'm just saying, like, just solely on Kyler's performance, like, would he be the second quarterback in the league by like in the entire league that you would want to start a franchise with? That's kind of the question.
I mean, other than probably moving Burrow up to 2 and Kyler down to 3, that to me that performance doesn't really impact my view on Kyler. It was a bad game, and he looked bad, and he looked nervous, and he did not look ready for the moment. I, I'm, I mean, to me, it's like, what other quarterback am I going to take? And I still think that, I mean, a lot of the other quarterbacks that I would consider taking haven't even been in the playoffs. Herbert hasn't even been in the
Allen.
playoffs. Allen has not beaten has not won a game he should not have won in the playoffs yet. By the way,
Um,
listen, I
I
like
don't know that
I'm
Ravens game last year. I mean, not saying he shouldn't not have won that game, but like it wasn't like that was like a slam dunk that he was going to win that
the
game.
clear hump his whole career. At first, it was the Patriots when he wasn't good, but when he became good, the hump has been the Chiefs. There's no like mystery
I mean,
about
that's a
it.
lot to ask for, to be honest, though. It's not like it's you're going into the best quarterback in the league and maybe one day the best quarterback, I guess Brady, but talented wise and that wise, the best quarterback of all time. I mean, it's not like you're not going against just some like random team, to be honest.
I don't disagree with that, but I'm just saying there's no other quarterback that has just like a far and superior resume to Kyler Murray. I know Kyler Murray's resume in the playoffs now is a bad game in LA, but Allen's, maybe it's not as bad as I claim to make it to be, but it's not all time great. It's probably not even good. It's just like meh. Like he's not played necessarily better or worse in the playoffs than in the regular season. You know, Dak, it's not like he's had a far better playoff resume. Herbert hasn't made the playoffs. Burrow doesn't have enough games. He's had one game in the playoffs. I can't make a judgment off that yet. I just, for me to downgrade Kyler like significantly from 2 and not just from 2 to 3, I mean, I would need to see something from another quarterback that shows to me that on top of Kyler having a bad game, they would need to have a resume in the playoffs for me to want to push them above for me to push them above Kyler, and I just don't see it. And I still think Kyler's an amazing quarterback. I mean, I don't think the size is really that as much of a factor as people initially thought it to be. He still has an amazing arm. He's still, accurate. He still makes so many great plays with his feet, and I don't see age becoming, a reason his career just like completely plummets. Like maybe it happened to Cam Newton. And maybe if you want to argue Ben, then you could argue Ben as well. And those kind of big guys, that the bigger they are, the harder they fall. I actually think Kyler won't have that because he's small and shifty, and he's a much better slider than a guy like Josh Allen and Cam and Ben, because he's a baseball player and he just has it's easier to slide when you're 5'10" versus 6'6". That's just the reality of sliding. So, and we've seen it with Russell Wilson. His mobility has not been compromised nearly as much as other guys who, as other mobile guys who became 32, 33 years old. So I'm still going with Kyler. If not 2, 3, I'd probably still stick with my guns and have him at 2, to be honest. Okay. I would say I would revise that. I would have Burrow 2 and Kyler 3, but that's all I'd be willing to do. I still have him above Herbert. I still have him above Allen. I still have him above, Mac Jones, Trevor, Russell Wilson. I still have him above all those guys. So,
Yeah, when I did my list, I had him at 4. I had Watson at 5, so it's obviously hard to judge it off that. But yeah, I think there's just concerns with him franchise. Like is he a franchise quarterback for sure? But after it seems like the thing that teams do is that they'll just pay like a quarterback like this like before their contract's up. Now it didn't happen with Dak, but like Dak's not on the level that Kyler can be, so I can't really compare it to that. But I wouldn't be surprised if after like next year, maybe even this offseason, like they give him a contract extension because he's already been in the league 3 years. So it would make sense. That's when Allen got his. So I wouldn't be surprised if he got a huge mega contract extension. I think that's the wrong move. I think you definitely need to see another year of him as the quarterback. Now this could be a Kingsbury thing too, but they start off really good and they end terribly. He usually gets injured. He's small, which you said it doesn't really play too much of a factor. I don't think so as well, but I think it plays a factor because it gets him injured more. And in the passing game, he just can't see. There's so many times where he gets balls batted down a ton and he just can't see most of the time. I think it definitely plays somewhat of a factor. And I'd be hesitant to give him a huge contract extension this offseason. If he has a great year next year and you win, you probably have to win the division, to be honest, which is going to be tough. But if you can, or he at least finishes strong and doesn't get injured, then for sure. But if he gets injured again, or if they start off hot and then they struggle, or they just struggle, I'd be hesitant to give him a huge contract because his numbers are 25, or he's 20. I don't know if it's 25, 22 and 1 or he's 22, 25 and 1. It's either one of those, but those are his numbers for his career. It's, I think I saw something that would compare him to Baker Mayfield. Through the first 3 years of their career, they have almost identical numbers. It's just something to look at.
yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I don't know that I would use the same word hesitant, but if I can wait to give Murray an extension, yeah, I'll wait. But if theoretically it was now or never, or now, not now or never, but now, or Kyler gets pissed and doesn't want to sign here or something like that, then yeah, I would give it to him. But yeah, I see the concerns. I just don't put as much stock into them as I guess you or other people might. The size thing, I'm not going to tell you it's completely irrelevant, but I do think it is smaller than people really say. There are moments when the size, seems to matter, and there are moments when size seems to not matter. So, yeah, and I don't think it just comes down to whether or not he's being pressured, because there's times when he's been pressured that he's made amazing throws. So, I don't know. I think it's tough. I still have him above Allen. Are you downgrading him from 4 significantly, or are you keeping him at 4?
Well, I'd probably keep him at 4, but it's tough because And again, I didn't tell you to compare Burrow to him, but like when it's Watson, it's just like he just didn't play at all this season, so it's kind of hard to tell. But I probably have him at 4,
Do
maybe
you,
move him down to 5. But like he again, I started him lower than you did at the beginning. So
so who do you have not on that list then? Do you have Herbert on that list? You do, right?
yeah, I
Do you,
believe it went Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, Murray, and Watson.
okay, so would you have Burrow ahead of him now or no?
I think when we made that list, I had Burrow at number 6. I don't know. I think again, Watson's the wild card. So let's just say Watson was out and it was Burrow at 5. I I I don't know. I would for sure be leaning towards put him at 5 because, and like I said, just the injury. Like if he again, if next year he just puts like a great season together, where throughout the season he's great, he doesn't get injured and he doesn't have the struggles that he's had the last couple of years. Like then he'd probably be at 4, maybe even 3. Who knows? But he has to prove that to me at least. It feels like to you he doesn't have to prove anything right now. To me, he has to prove something this next season. And maybe that's Kingsbury, maybe it's not, but that's the way that I'm thinking.
No, I still think he has stuff left to prove to me because I still want to see the same season that you're looking for next year. It's just that I'm not going to move him down and require he proves that. I just because there's nobody for me to really put him, put ahead of him in my opinion that like has proven what Kyler needs to prove. Like I don't think Herbert has proven that he's just going to walk into the playoffs and not have a bad game in the playoffs. I mean, I guess Burrow's kind of proved that, but it's only been one game, and I don't know. So I think people, I just think it's a little bit of, I guess, recency bias. And I'm not going to tell you he hasn't had the kind of fall offs to the end of the year that every single year because he has had that, but I don't know. If it happens again next year, then I'll put legitimate concern on it. I think it's slightly concerning now, but I still would have him at 2. I would still have him at probably 2 or 3. I mean, if you want to move Burrow ahead of him, maybe I do that now, seeing what Burrow has done the past month and a half since we made that list. But other than that, I'm not moving him down any further. So
All right. I guess any thoughts on the game? Like I said, we probably have to wrap this up pretty soon, but I don't really have any thoughts to be honest.
no thoughts. I mean, it's what we've kind of seen from the Cardinals. I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit in our conversation, but the Cardinals is not able to have a good end to the year. They haven't ever been able to do that with Kingsbury and Murray, and ends up falling apart. Is that going to be a thing to come for future years? We'll see. Maybe, maybe not. And the Rams just played a hell of a game, and OBJ looks like he's maybe starting to come back to form. I mean, I don't know.
The one thing I'll say about that is you went from the Browns to the Rams. Like you're obviously going to get better. Like I think people are just blowing out of proportion like how much better he's gotten. He's 6 touchdown catches in 9 games or whatever. Like you're playing with Cooper Kupp, you're playing with Matt Stafford, and you're playing with Sean McVay. Like you should be better. Just again, I know Baker like they didn't target him as much or whatever, and he missed him when he was there, but like you're playing with way better players and way better coaches. Like you should be better than you were in Cleveland. And he's also probably healthier than he was in Cleveland, where he just wasn't healthy when he was there as well. So I think people are just taking it out of proportion a lot. And he's never going to be the player he once was 2015, 2016. But is he a good receiver? Yeah, he's a good receiver, but he'll never be that type of player ever again, like ever.
I agree with everything you said. I think it's been blown way out of proportion. Touchdown catches are like borderline irrelevant. Like unless it's like you're getting these touchdown catches because you're a clear red zone threat, like a tight end would, or like a Mike Evans or Randy Moss or something, where you're just like clearly such a big red zone threat. Then yeah, you can put some stock into it. But 95% of the time, maybe 90 or 85%, touchdown catches are kind of just like random. Like it's not like. I don't know.
The perfect guy I would always do this with was Julio Jones. I mean, there was like 3 straight years where he had like 5 touchdowns total, and he's obviously was still the best receiver in the league. So like, it just didn't like from in 2017 he had 3 touchdowns, 2018 he had 8, which is like decent, but he had 1,700 yards. You'd expect him to have more. 2019 he had 6, and then 2020 he only played 9 games, but he only had 3 touchdowns. Like, but obviously he was still the best receiver during those years, but he wasn't scoring as many touchdowns. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But I mean, like Brandon said, that's pretty much it for this episode. It was a pretty long episode, like an hour 40 minutes, hour 42 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, appreciate everybody stay tuned for
Well,
next episode.
well, actually, what last thing. We because we didn't record last week. We did make Week 18 picks, and you almost went 5-0.
Okay, yeah, we should look at those actually. You're right.
I went 2-3. I think you went 4-1. I
I
mean, we
gotta.
could do this next
It's been
episode if
so
you
long
want to,
since I.
but
No, I mean, let's just look. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to do next. Let's just look at it now.
because you
I
had
gotta.
Panthers, Bucks, you had the -8, the Bucks. Them, I think they blew them out. Um, the
Yeah.
one game you lost, I think, was the Ram. Or no, you took San Francisco in that game. They obviously won, so that worked. You took the Chargers. We both took the Chargers. That's the one that we lost.
Yeah, I won
Um,
on Dallas. I won on Washington. One on Tampa. Yeah, I went 4-1.
yeah, and I went on Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Atlanta lost, New England lost, and then Chargers lost.
So that would technically upgrade my record to 48, 40-2. We're gonna double check or I guess at this point triple check the records before anything like official. We're waiting to the Super Bowl. I mean, if you've followed the podcast, you know we're doing the presentation thing, where the loser of the predictions throughout the year has to give a presentation on their bad picks and the other person's good, or their bad predictions and the other person's good predictions throughout the podcast. Um, so right now, did you update your record?
I just did, yeah.
Okay, so 53, 36, and 1 is yours.
Yep.
Okay, so if these are accurate, which they probably are, you would have won by 5 games, which is, I mean, it's not a huge margin, but that's a pretty significant margin. I mean, that's a whole extra week of games that you beat me by. Um, Ultimately, I think it's hard not to consider yours at least a small success. Yours is definitely a success. I think mine is a small success. It's not, it's not the Bengals going from what probably was a blast in the division year to 10-7, but it's not a disaster of a year. I mean, I went above 500 by 8 games, so I'm not mad at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah,
If
no, we both had good years, yeah.
if next year you told me I was gonna go 48, 40-2, I mean, I would be disappointed because everybody wants to do insanely well, but it's hard not to take it because had I bet all these games, I'm at least, making a little bit of money. Maybe I'm breaking even at 48, 40-2, but I'm probably making a little bit of money.
Yeah. And I don't know if you like this idea for next year, but we could do a points thing where you pick 3 games and it's 3 points, 2 points, 1 point instead of picking 5 games.
I've had a lot of thoughts on what we could do next year. There's this one thing that I saw. It's like you give your like locks of the week where you get a point for
Hmm.
each. You get a point for each team that each game you pick predict. Sorry, oh my god, my all these like words. You get a point for each game you predict correctly, but if you miss one, you don't get any points. So it's like how many games are you gonna take? So like
Ooh,
I
that's
mean
tough.
it is tough. I mean it was very interesting looking at it because
It'd be
like
so low scoring, I feel like.
it would be low scoring for sure, but it would be really interesting because like Lions Cardinals, remember that week December 19th, that was week what 18, 17, 16, 15, week 15. We probably would both have Lions Cardinals in our locks of the week. And even if we had, let's say we put 5 locks and we got 4 right, but this one we got wrong, we get no points. So
Yeah.
it would be really interesting. Maybe next year we do the lock thing on top of something else, but I think the locks thing is maybe we save the locks thing for like a Clips channel exclusive. I don't know, but I think that would be really interesting.
Or maybe you get one lock per week, and that's worth like if we want to do a points thing or not, that could be like worth 3 points or something. Like you have
Yeah,
one lock for the week, and you get 3 points, and obviously if you don't get it, you get 0 points. I don't know.
yeah, no, it would be yeah, but I think next year we should change it up. That doesn't mean we have to ditch what we do right now completely. But yeah, I think yeah, we could definitely see investigate with what things we could add to this. But overall, it's hard not to call our predictions a success this year. If you put them both together, we are 7 plus. Sorry, no, not 7. How many games above 500 were you? I mean, what, 4 plus? You were 17 games above
I was
500.
17.
So 17 plus 8. I mean, we were 25 games above 500 in total. So
Yeah.
it's hard not to consider that as a massive success. So I'll take it. But, anyways, that's it. Appreciate everybody who stayed to the end. We'll be back probably Thursday or Friday. You'll probably see this on Wednesday, I'll say. So we'll probably be back probably Friday. Goodbye.